So, welcome to this week's Bite Size. As the leadership interviews have been so popular, I'm doing another one this week, and today I'm joined by our medical director, Dr. Venu Harilal. So, Venu, thank you so much for joining me this morning. Um,
Thank you, Beth.
the NHS People Plan, published in July, highlighted that it's never been more urgent for our leaders to take action to create an organisational culture where everyone feels they belong, and in particular to improve the experience of our Black, Asian, and minority ethnic background staff. So, as a leader from a BAME background, what have been your experiences of the NHS as a BAME member of staff?
My personal experiences have been really good, actually. Though I started off my career in '96, I recognize that coming up in the training, when looking back on things, I acknowledge that I may have been subject to certain attitudes and behaviors. But I didn't recognize that as an issue related to the color of my skin or my background. I looked at it personally as something to do with my knowledge, skills, and attitudes which I was developing at that time, rather than seeing it as an issue around my BAME background. But then when you go up in your career and look back on things, you might think those sorts of small things that happened at that time may be considered as something related to your background. But that wasn't an issue at the time when I trained and when I took part. I may have lost out on interviews and things, and you feel a loss about all of those things, and you bring in your own perspective of why I didn't get that job, and I think to myself, yeah, okay, at that time, maybe my competence weren't good enough. And rather than seeing it as something that affected me as a person. So in a way, in a positive way, I feel the NHS has given me an experience that I may not have had if I were to have continued my career back home in India. And that experience has been both positive, empowering, enabling, and it has made me a better person around my own prejudices, perceptions, and made me feel that there is a social system of medicine that supports patients where, without looking at their financial background or their cultural backing. Now, as a senior leader, I do see, I do recognize and acknowledge the people's experiences are not always the same. And I do want to acknowledge and recognize that everyone's experience is different. So mine is who I have been, and I have developed in my role as through the NHS career to
Thank
where I
you.
am now.
Thank you. Now, Norfolk is not the most diverse or multicultural of counties, so I'm curious, how did you end up in Norfolk? What brought you here?
Well, actually, I mean, the consultant, when you go finish your training and you apply for consultant jobs, you start applying at various places. And the jobs that came up were in Sheffield, in Rotherham, and then in Norfolk. And having gone through the interviews in Sheffield and Rotherham, who you would have thought would be multicultural places, um, I didn't get the job, and that didn't put me off. So Norfolk, though I had no clue what Norfolk was or anything, I came over, and I guess the interview format was slightly different from the previous ones that I had. The interview format was for more of a multidisciplinary assessment of your skills, and I was more suited for that. As a rehab doctor, you work with a team of people, and having had the experience of going through an interview in Norfolk where you were judged by your peers and your fellow colleagues, it makes it a much more satisfying experience to be part of a team where you feel that you have been judged by your peers and be part of that team. Yes, and your question around Norfolk being less of a multicultural place. Yes, and I guess when I first started in 2005, my colleague had warned me at that time about what it means to be living in Norfolk, and and I haven't felt at all left behind or uh, challenged um, in a way when I have worked with my peers, when I have been out into the community. Though my interactions may be different, I may not, living in a different lifestyle. I may not have gone into places where I would have had that experience of challenges to myself, but I have never felt threatened or fearful of who I am as a person. So I have felt uniquely able, and you and my family as well. I guess, though subsequently my children, my daughter had faced some challenges at school. I have never felt personally anything in particular throughout my life here in Norfolk, and I've been privileged to be living and working in Norfolk so far.
And we're lucky to have you, so thank you. I'm glad you came here. You may have answered this a little bit already, but how do you think, if it has, that your history or your race or your ethnicity has impacted your career journey to becoming a leader in the NHS?
Yes, I guess my cultural backgrounds and the Hindu philosophy which I was brought up in is all about the compassionate care, respect, empathy, and understanding other people's plights and their life. Now, though Hindu philosophy is built around that empathy model, we still have financial differences, and it's hard to see these things when living a life in a country where there is a huge imbalance between rich and poor. So you are brought up. My life has been, my family has been brought up where we have gone up in our social standing through their own efforts of what we in the UK term as that social mobility. So in that respect, I have seen where I have come from, where I am now. So I can look back on things and not judge where other people's journeys need to be and support people on their journey to where they want to be. So I guess that those sort of skill sets stick in my mind, and I am never tempted to say I am good where I am and then look down on someone because I have been on that journey. I know what it was like to get to where I was. So I can support other colleagues to achieve their ambitions, their goals through my own experiences. But that doesn't mean I will ever understand what it feels like for someone else who is going up in that field, because they have their own experiences. My experience was shaped by my own upbringing and my culture, and that helped me to where I am. But that helps me also to listen and understand and to empathize and not to judge and not to give advice. I am not giving advice based on my experience because that's my experience. People have to make their own experiences, but I can help them make their own experiences. So I guess that's where I would want to be supporting people, and that's where my background has helped me to support people.
Thank you. And then this global pandemic turned up in your world. So how has COVID-19 impacted you as a leader and the way you lead?
Yes, I guess personally, you have to look after yourself, that element of compassion to oneself, because you have family, you have elderly parents, you have dependents, and you worry about them. Um, but then you also acknowledge that you are working within a team who also have similar feelings, thoughts, and worries. Those what I would call ideas, concerns, and expectations. And all I can do as a senior leader is to be there for them, when they are struggling or when they are acknowledging that they have concerns and feelings that they are going through when dealing with the fear of a pandemic. Now, the fear is built. I mean, the important thing is we acknowledge that there is fear, and what we try to help our colleagues through is to learn and to grow. So it is those three key words. We've got to acknowledge fear is an important part of our own human existence, and that helps us. And that from that fear, we can learn, and support with that learning is what I can do, be there for someone and help people grow. So I guess that has been the key thing from this pandemic, that what I've realized is on a personal front or on an organizational front, I acknowledge that only way that we can be resilient as an NHS or a health and social care system is that we support each other, because we are all going through similar things. And if we work together, we acknowledge those feelings of fear and learn from each other and grow, we will be able to manage this, the whole challenge as partners in collaboration and in collegiate working. So I guess that's been the key thing. So helping people, helping the organization to develop that system working, and helping our system partners to feel that we are all in this together, and supporting that attitude is the key thing. It's not the knowledge and skills, it's that attitude of working together that makes that difference.
Thank you. Now that learning from each other and growing really nicely represents the reverse mentoring scheme that we've
Yes.
got inside the organisation. So where staff from underrepresented groups, for whatever reason, whether it's their ethnicity, their health condition, their sexual orientation, anything like that, are mentoring senior leaders, so enabling that growth and understanding and change of perspective of senior leaders around those underrepresented situations. So I'm just curious, what are your thoughts and experiences, because you've been involved in the reverse mentoring
Yes.
program? So what would you want to say about that?
I guess the most important thing to me is the diversity of thinking. And if I surround myself with people who tell me, yeah, what I'm doing is right, I'm not going to get anywhere. And my mind works on that challenge that I have from my fellow colleagues. If my colleagues challenge me, yes, I will act. I will suddenly become a child and think, what the hell's all that? But then, if I give myself some time, I can realize I want to become an adult again, and realize what that challenge is all about, helping me to grow, to learn and grow. So when I used that principle earlier on, the fear, learning, growth, any sort of diversity always brings in that fear element. And when you have conversations with colleagues who have been going through various things, whether that's sexual orientation, you know, your BMA background, whatever it is, it really brings in their experiences, which helps me to deal with my fear, helps me to learn, and it's helped me to grow. So the first experience of having that reverse mentoring was that key thing around what it feels like to do from part-time working, what it feels like a colleague who is doing part-time working, what opportunities they don't see, what are the challenges that they're facing, what are the family issues. So you are seeing it as a person, and rather than as an organization. And when you see that as a fellow human being, then it makes it more real. It makes you feel that you are, you know, as a normal human being as anyone else. And my prejudices and things have been built around by my own thoughts rather than listening to my fellow colleague. So I feel that the reverse mentoring process is such an important thing, and I would encourage all colleagues, whatever their background is, to stand up and come and do the reverse mentoring. Go and help your leaders to learn and reflect, and for them to deal with their fears so that they can grow and we can grow together and change society, change the way that we deliver healthcare, because it is actually the patient care only improves when we feel empowered and belong together as one team to support patient care. Yes, so I would support every colleague who would want to take up that opportunity to do that reverse mentoring process.
Thank you. So I think we're nearly at the end of the interview now, Venu. So I'm just curious, is there anything else that you wanted to say to other colleagues across the trust?
Yes, I guess I really want to acknowledge that colleagues are going through a very challenging time, and we are all dealing with this in our individual ways. But the one way that we can support each other is to have that team conversations. Talk to each other, tell each other what it feels like. We do not want to find answers for individual colleagues. All we want is colleagues for them to open and honestly say what they're feeling and acknowledge those feelings. Listen. Don't try to solve problems. We are not here to solve. We are here to enable colleagues to have that conversation of what it feels like to deal with these challenging times. And when you have that conversation, help them to find their own answers. So we've got various tools that the organization has set up, coaching techniques and things which help colleagues to develop those skills to support your fellow colleague. So the three key things I want to mention is compassion, which is not compassion just to your colleagues and your patients, but compassion to oneself. The sense of gratitude. Say those gratitude things to yourself. Say, identify one thing that you feel proud of. Say, give your gratitude to others. Empathy. Acknowledge and acknowledge that your colleagues may be going through a challenging time as much as you are, and just listen. We don't want to find answers for each other. We will have answers in ourselves, but just listen and acknowledge those feelings. I think those are the three key things I wanted to mention: that compassion piece, the gratitude piece, and the empathy. Then we can develop resilience together. So I think that's the three key things that I wanted to say.
Thank you. What a lovely way to end the interview. So for those of you listening, if you want to know more about the reverse mentoring program, please do search reverse mentoring on the intranet. There's a full page there, or you can contact me at rebecca.bus@nchc.nhs.uk. And as usual, here is the access to the whole range of support measures that are available to all of us as members of staff. So I'll leave you with this slide. Thank you so much for your time, Venu. It's been a real joy this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Bex, and thank you to all of our colleagues.